Claudia was a 58-year-old married Caucasian female referred by her family physician for evaluation for electroconvulsive therapy due to severe chronic depression. She had been unresponsive to multiple psychopharmacologic interventions and 14 years of psychotherapy. Claudia's history was the following. At an early age, she remembers being told by her mother that she had attempted to abort her. She had been told that she was an ugly duckling and would never become a swan. Her parents divorced when she was 7, and she was shuffled among relatives. She had been married for 40 years to a good man. In her younger years, she had multiple hospitalizations for depression and suicide attempts. And the year before being seen, she had a brief psychotic episode that resolved without hospitalization. She has a 19-year-old adopted son who has ADHD and exhibits erratic behavior. Regarding her spiritual life, she was a devout Catholic. Regarding her medical history, at age 26, she had a tubal pregnancy that required transfusions. At age 47, Claudia was diagnosed as having breast cancer. This required a right mastectomy. She has had no recurrence of the cancer since that time. She had an angiogram which showed cardiomyopathy at age 57 and has required cardiac medications. Her laboratory data was within normal limits, and her TSH was within normal limits. Regarding her psychiatric history, she had inpatient hospitalizations in 1986 and 1992 and had been in outpatient psychotherapy with the same therapist for 14 years until 1 year prior to this assessment. Claudia's medications were the following. Regarding her psychotropic medications, she had been on Seroquel 25 milligrams at bedtime, 2 years, Depakote 500 milligrams each morning, 10 years, Dilantin extended release 100 milligrams 3 times daily, 5 years, Effexor immediate release 150 milligrams 3 times daily, 5 years, Dizipramine 50 milligrams at bedtime, 2 years. And regarding her cardiac medications and other medications, she was on the following. She was on the following as-needed medications, which she said she took very rarely: Imitrex, oxycodone, ibuprofen, and Nasonex. Date of evaluation, 8/3/2000. Behavior, Claudia came to the interview willingly. Her eye contact was good, her speech was clear and coherent, and of normal volume and speed. There was some slight psychomotor retardation. Appearance, she is a pleasant-looking woman who appeared her stated age. She was neatly groomed and appropriately dressed. Judgment appeared intact. Orientation, she was oriented to person, date, and place. Intellectual functioning appeared to be average or above. She spelt the word world forward and backward. She named the presidents, but interestingly named Reagan as President Clinton's predecessor and Nixon as his predecessor. In doing serial sevens, she made one mistake in 5 responses. She named 2 countries in Europe and 2 countries in the Middle East. She interpreted 3 proverbs with good abstraction. Memory. Remote appeared generally intact, but there did appear to be some impairment as shown by her listing of the presidents. Recent memory was intact with recall of 4 objects at 3 minutes, and immediate recall was intact with recall of 7 digits forward and 5 backward. Mood was depressed. Affect was somewhat restricted. Insight. Insight into the role of thought was minimal. Thought processes were goal-directed. There was no evidence of hallucinations or delusions. She admitted to suicidal thoughts but did not fear any loss of impulse control regarding these. She denied any thoughts of harm to others. Thought content revolved around feelings of hopelessness regarding her depression, stating, "I must fight blueness all the time. I can't get anything done. I'm scared that the depression is getting worse." Recommendations, discussion, and plan. Claudia is going on vacation tomorrow, so I hesitate to change her medications at this time. If her cardiac status can tolerate the side effects, a trial of lithium might be helpful. I will discuss this with Dr. H. and will explore an alternative to the propranolol. I did ask Claudia to read the book, The Missing Link, and to watch the movie on the application and the principles of psychological functioning. Claudia has agreed to hold off on electroconvulsive therapy at this time. She will attend 3 group therapy sessions, and we will reassess the need for ECT in an individual session following those 3 sessions. Regarding Claudia's therapy course, one can see on the left that the time frame that this covers is approximately 1 year. And at the bottom, one can see that her individual sessions during this time were 10, her group sessions were 27, and her Beck depression inventory had dropped from 32 upon initial evaluation to the small number of 2. We can see that there was a major drop in her Beck depression inventory on 9/27 after just 3 individual sessions and 1 group session. Even though there was a slight increase in her Beck depression inventory, it never became seriously elevated after this point. Again, one can see that the group sessions were substantially more than the individual sessions, and obviously a major breakthrough came on 3/19, approximately 7 months after initiating therapy, 8 individual sessions and 15 group sessions, when her Beck depression inventory initially dropped to 2 and sustained there for the remainder of her therapy course. After this period of 7/25, she continued to attend 10 more groups until her last visit on 12/11/01, which was the time that I was leaving my private practice in Aberdeen. Regarding her medications at the cessation of therapy on 12/11/01, 16 months after her initial visit, the following is to be noted. She was no longer on Seroquel, Depakote, Dilantin, or Dizipramine. She was on Effexor, but now only 75 milligrams daily, and also was on Adderall, 15 milligrams daily, due to an additional diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which had been found during therapy. Her final diagnoses were the following: bipolar affective disorder, present episode major depression; attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, primarily inattentive type; Axis 2, no diagnosis was noted; Axis 3, breast cancer in remission, and cardiomyopathy; Axis 4, she has a 19-year-old son with episodic destructive behavior, but also has a supportive and loving husband; Axis 5, or GAF, at time of evaluation initially was 25, and at the time of termination had risen to 90.
I was at about probably the lowest I've been. I've been being treated for clinical depression for a great number of years, and with medication changes and stuff, I've been able to keep fairly stabilized. And this time, I just couldn't get back up. Each time we made a medication change, I would get better. I'd be more in control. And this time, I just couldn't seem to get out of the dark pit. And so my medical doctor told me maybe we'd fooled around with medications long enough, and maybe it was time to take a more serious step and consider electric shock treatment. I remember when I was first diagnosed with depression, I was just stunned because I had nothing to be depressed about. And I still felt that way at this time, that I had nothing to be depressed about. Life is good. I have a very loving family. Everybody gets along well. We don't have any big major problems. Finances were doing just great. I didn't have to work. I had all the free time I wanted to do the things I enjoy doing, but I didn't enjoy doing anything. And I guess when I say this was my lowest, I think there had been lower points because I had suicidal tendencies at one time. But I don't give in to the suicidal at this time. At this point, I'd come to the point where I didn't do that anymore, because we had a nephew who committed suicide, and I suddenly saw the hurt it did to other people. To me, it was always just a way to get out, which would benefit them, because I felt that I was a drag on everyone. So I might have been lower at those points when I actually considered suicide. But it was just like I couldn't function anymore. I couldn't reach the good feelings anymore. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't decide whether I should brush my teeth or comb my hair first, which comes first. I couldn't enjoy anything, all the things that we enjoyed as a family. I had to work at enjoying them. I had to try to put on a mask so my family would think I was enjoying life, so I wouldn't drag them down. And I just got dreadfully tired. And I slept mostly. It's mostly what I did, is just sleep. It was always so disappointing when I woke up. And it's just not a way to live. And I know I was a drag on the people I was around. and you don't want to do that to the people you love. It was like I knew in my head that good things were going on in the world, but I simply couldn't relate to them.
She was quite gloomy, and she slept a lot. I mean, I didn't know anybody could sleep for 20 hours straight, but she could. And then when I'd wake her up to do something, she'd say she didn't want to get out of bed. And she had some problems. I wouldn't, for most of our married life, she didn't want me to bring company home, and of course, I liked company, and so that was a problem with us. She would be up once in a while. When she was up, she was way up, and then she would wonder why I wouldn't have the same exhilarated excitement that she would have. But I was just I didn't want to get way up there because I was preparing for the letdown. Because when she's up for a little bit, then she'd crash, and it'd all be over, and she'd be worse than she was before. So on these occasional highs, I couldn't get up there with her because I knew that it was going to fall. She's a very interesting person, and she's fun to be with, and when we take trips, I would enjoy her company, but she had a lot of problems, and I just kept looking forward to the day when she could be always like I knew she could be on occasion. I didn't know what it would take, but I knew it was in her.
So my medical doctor told me maybe we'd fooled around with medications long enough, and maybe it was time to take a more serious step and consider electric shock treatment. He said there was a doctor in town that did that and had been having some good success, so recommended that I see him, and he set up an appointment. I was kind of scared because our first thought was one flew over the cuckoo's nest, lobotomies and stuff like this, and he assured me that that wasn't what the modern day was like, and I was a little scared of even thinking about the procedure, but I was really desperate. And I came to see Dr. Pettit, and we had one appointment, more or less an evaluation appointment, I would guess, and he said we would discuss electric shock a little later. And then I left for a trip, and when I came back, I had another appointment with him. And he discussed changing some medication and maybe having me come to therapy class, and he didn't bring up electric shock treatment. And when I got home, I was a little bit peeved about that. I was mad at myself for not telling him that just to do it. And I was disappointed because I was looking for help, and I thought changing medication and therapy I've been doing for years. But I thought I'll give it a chance. The first group therapy class was quite a show. It had been going on for some time, so I was during one of the later sessions, and I went, and I'm rather aggressive and loud-mouthed, and they were reading from Sydney Banks' the first book, and I kept wondering what they were talking about. And Dr. Pettit would stand up and make comments and ask for comments from the patients. Most of them didn't say much, they just sat and listened. And finally he asked for comments, and I had been getting more and more agitated, and finally I said, in a very loud, screaming voice at the top of my lungs, "Does anybody know what he's talking about?" And dead silence, And then I burst out crying, and I left. And I think the session was over at that point. And I was sitting in my car trying to get control before I drove, and Dr. Pettit came and rapped on my window. told me to come back in. And he took me in and talked to me for 2 hours. He told me that he wanted me to give it a chance, keep giving it a chance, and he would do the electric shock if I insisted, but he really preferred to have me do this for a while instead. And I continued to fight with Sydney Banks's ideas, and they seemed like nice phrases. And that's all. And I continued fighting them and reading and trying to force myself to believe it, and for quite some time. But I came to the therapies, and I continued having my individual therapy. I don't know exactly what happened, but somewhere along the line I must have done what Mr. Banks tells us to do and stopped trying to analyze and just waited for a feeling, because somewhere along the line I had an aha, you know, and it wasn't anything I can even describe. I just know that we were in a therapy class one day when I suddenly realized that I had this health in me, that no matter how hard I tried to kill it, it was going to be there. And it was fairly overwhelming. And that night I was inspired to write a poem about it, and that seemed to solidify my understanding of it a little more. And it was all coasting from there, really. I mean, the thing is, I'm not cured of having anger or being upset or having headaches or whatever, but I've learned something that lets me cope with it. I think before I always wanted to just have them erase all this bad stuff about me and have it be gone. And instead, I found out that I can still have problems, but I can now cope with them. And I can take those problems as a warning signal that I need to get a little more quiet and let this natural ability of my body take over, instead of trying to control it all myself. I don't know, I just enjoy life. I enjoy people so much. I can't believe this, because my husband's what he calls a people person, always has been. And I've always said, don't you bring anybody to my house. I don't want to socialize with people. I'm scared. Well, I don't feel that way anymore. I really enjoy people. I feel like I have so much love inside that I just got to let it out all the time. And all these people are around, and so I just, you know, hug them and and tease them and have a good time. There's a lot of joy in waking up in the morning now. Also, I'm down to sleeping a mere 8 hours a night, 8 to 10 instead of 12 to 20, you know, and I get more out of my days. I'm not tired like I used to be. I do more work and am less tired than when I was depressed. I laugh at the stuff I've written in my journals from the past. I look at them and I think how ridiculous I was. But I know it was real. It really was difficult. And I know that's what my vision was. But I look at it now and I think, how could I have been so dumb? Because there's so much stuff to enjoy. I can enjoy the littlest things. And I used to always be my worst critic. I didn't approve of anything I did or the way I did it. And now I'm going around saying, I was pretty good at that, wasn't I? So I say a monster has been created here. It's just, I don't know, it's almost a new person. And I love feeling the way I feel.
It's good. Can I fix your dinner tonight? She never did that before. and I was going to a get-together with some friends, and I asked, you know, if you wanted to go with me, and she said, okay. That was something different too. And so then I Then I gradually started noticing that she's doing better. But I was waiting for the letdown, and it didn't seem to come. It's, so I've been enjoyed the new level.
Knowing that there's a health there was number one, the biggest thing for me. But then the idea that our past is past and we don't have to worry about it anymore. And why spend all day today worrying about tomorrow? That sounded like a platitude when I first read it in Mr. Banks's books, but it makes so much sense. And I'm enjoying the moment a lot more than I ever did before. Knowing that I am capable of being what I want. In other words, the outside factors are going to have something to do with it, but it's how I react to those outside things. And I have the control there. I can, if someone gets mad and throws a pie in my face, I can get mad back, or I can eat the pie. And I'd probably eat the pie. But I don't hold grudges like I used to. Oh, I might stay mad longer than I should, but I don't hold grudges like I used to. I mean, I have forgiven so many people for these insignificant things that I thought were so important. And that's been freeing. I guess it's just knowing that I can respond the way I want to, and I can respond in a healthy way, or I can respond in an aggravated way. And I still don't catch myself often enough. I'll slam the door, or I'll do the yelling, and then catch myself, but I am catching myself. And I'm staying angry or sick or mad a lot less, for shorter periods of time. I have more good days than I have bad days. I never thought I'd see that day, not since I was a child have I ever thought I'd have more good days than bad days. So, I guess just that knowledge that I can respond the way that I want to is... I've read that before. It just never sank in. Well, I've talked over it with a niece of mine who has... She and I have shared our phone calls and our feelings, and she wanted to know how come I was so different. And what could she get out of it, because she has some of the same problems. And I discussed it with her and tried to make her understand that to let go, that's the main thing, let go and let the health come up. I told her, to me, I feel kind of like I've been given a life jacket, and life can keep pushing me under and pushing me under, but if I just relax, I'm going to bob back up. The other thing is there's a concentration, and that's not the right word, but there's health is discussed here, not our problems. And I've always tried to say, I know people are supposed to blame their parents, so I'd be blaming my mother for everything. And then thinking, well, that's not fair, because then my kids are going to blame me. But talking about our problems was the norm. I mean, that's all, the therapy I went to for years was problem talking. And looking back to see what caused this or what caused that. And as we learned in our therapy classes here, that just makes you stay in the problem longer. It gives it life again. And so just emphasizing the health instead of the problem has just been a miraculous idea. The idea that what's in the past is just a thought and what's in the future is just a thought are rather novel to me. And I know that they were realities, what was in the back, in the past. But knowing now that that is just a thought, and a thought comes and goes and is no more unless you bring it back and bring it back, and then it's just a new thought, has really helped me not to hold the past grudges, or not to feel, well, actually I held more grudges against myself, not to be so critical of what I did 10 years ago. You know, let go of it, it's gone. Has really given me a good sense of freedom. I don't have to continually think of myself as bad because of something bad I once did. I might be bad right now because I'm doing something bad, but I don't have to be mad about the bad I did before. That's over and done with. By the same token, I guess I can't walk around in glory for the good I did either. I've got to just keep doing that on a new basis. But that's one of the things I could not get when we started. Mind, consciousness, and thought being principles that, you know, you don't argue whether they exist or not. They just are. But to me, it was a novel thought that the past is no longer reality. To me, it happened. It's substantial. It's there. It exists. But it doesn't exist for today. It's been like falling in love all over again. It's a different love level for me. I've always loved Bill. He's irritated me to death sometimes, but I've always loved him. But this is it's different somehow in that it's more natural feeling, and it's I enjoy my love of him more than I look for his love of me, and that's kind of different feeling for me. I used to base it more on, well, boy, he does this for me, he does that for me, he really loves me, so I must be something special. Instead of, I love him so much I'll do anything, and, you know, because he's special. And it's a nicer feeling, much nicer feeling than when you're trying to get it as when you're giving it. And I really enjoy cooking and stuff that he's been the major cook and bottle washer all the years of our marriage. We've been married 41 years. So I really enjoy fixing a meal on occasion. He still does a lot of it, but I enjoy it when I do it. And we love to take trips together. And I've developed a sense of humor. He can say something flip to me and I can give it right back to him instead of getting that mad. Bill's been telling me since he first met me, Claudia, you have perpetual, what do you call it? Potential. Perpetual potential. And so for 40 years he's been waiting for that potential to come through, and I think it's finally peeking through.
There is a universal truth that tells us of a gift that dwells within us naturally to help us when we drift. When times of joy turn into woe, when wealth must cede to thrift, we need but turn inside to find a path back from the cliff. And yet we choose to hide ourselves in darkness and dismay, afraid what passing strangers might think of us today. We cover all our goodness up with heavy clouds of gray and build great walls around us, thus keeping life at bay. Why can't we trust in our own good? Why can't we shine each day? How is it that we constantly get lost along the way? When strength is there within us, how can we go astray? Perhaps we're blinded by the dust from our feet of clay. When times are hard and fears are strong, we need to turn within to find the natural gift of health with which we all begin. We'll find it underneath the shadow of our stubborn chin that's raised to justify our right to think we cannot win. We argue for our negatives and dwell upon our woe, not realizing that this holding on just helps it grow. We have to learn to recognize that thoughts that we bestow are simply dust we've trampled up, and we can let them go.